Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking your sources and really digging into Leh Ladakh. You hear it called Little Tibet, this sort of romantic image. But it's so much more complex, right? Extreme geography, deep spiritual roots, and these big geopolitical shifts recently.
Yeah, and those shifts are, well, they're crucial. That administrative change, becoming a union territory back in 2019.
Right, separating from Jammu and Kashmir.
Exactly. And that wasn't just lines on a map. Our sources show it really changed things, direct federal money, different development plans, a clearer voice nationally. It definitely altered its path.
Okay, so keeping that really important context in mind, our mission here is pretty straightforward. Pull out the key insights from these sources for you, give you a solid understanding without drowning you in detail. Whether you're maybe thinking of going, just curious about different cultures, or you just like learning stuff, this should be helpful. So let's get into it. Maybe start with the most defining thing. It's geography.
Yeah, and it's fascinating how the geography isn't just a backdrop there. It really shapes everything. We're talking the greater Himalayas, the trans-Himalayan ranges. Most of it's way up there, over 3,000 meters. That's nearly 10,000 feet.
Wow.
And that altitude creates this cold desert climate. It's not just pretty stark landscapes. It forces these unique ways of living. Think like huge temperature swings, day to night, super dry air, and this reliance on really ancient irrigation to catch snowmelt. It affects the architecture, the farming, everything.
That altitude, that climate, it really tells a human story, doesn't it? And administratively, Ladakh's split in two, right? Leh district, mostly Buddhist, and then Kargil, which is mainly Shia Muslim.
A distinct branch of Islam, historically very significant there. It creates this really interesting religious dynamic within Ladakh itself.
And Leh town is the main center, the capital.
Yeah, largest town, administrative capital. It used to be the capital of an old Himalayan kingdom, actually. It's nestled in the mountains, and now, yeah, it's a big tourist hub.
Okay, so this environment, this admin setup, how does that feed into the culture? It sounds pretty diverse.
It is diverse, and the sources suggest this isn't just, people living side by side. It's centuries of trade routes, migrations, people facing the same tough environment together. So you have Tibetan Buddhists, dominant in Leh, the Shia Muslims, mainly in Kargil, and a small Christian community, too.
And the languages reflect that mix.
Absolutely. Ladakhi, which is a Tibetic language related to Tibetan, plus Urdu, Hindi, and, English is pretty common too, especially with tourism.
It sounds like a real melting pot. But Tibetan Buddhism seems really central in Leh, visually at least, with the monastery.
No, definitely. Its influence is huge. You see it everywhere, especially in those incredible monasteries, Hemis, Dixi, Diskit. They're stunning. And the sources talk about the Ladakhi simple lifestyle, which isn't about being poor. It's more like a really integrated, sustainable way of living.
Sustainable living?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, like traditional houses, they often use passive solar heating, local mud bricks, ways to cope with the crazy temperatures. It's like this indigenous wisdom working with the environment for centuries.
That's fascinating. Does that sort of sustainable mindset extend to how they deal with visitors, with tourism?
I think it tries to. That warmth and hospitality people talk about, it feels genuine. And they welcome people to see these amazing natural sights. I mean, Leh Ladakh is just incredible for photos, but it's also an ecological marvel, right?
Like what specifically?
Well, Pangong Lake stands out, that huge high-altitude salt lake that stretches into China.
Oh, yeah, I've seen pictures. Looks unreal.
It is. And beyond just being beautiful, it's got this unique, hardy ecosystem. It kind of highlights those cross-border environmental connections, too.
It really sounds like it offers these almost surreal experiences. The sources mentioned places like Nubra Valley.
Right, the desert and the mountains.
Yeah, with the double-humped camels.
Yeah.
And Khardung Pass, one of the highest motorable roads.
Supposedly, yeah. Legendary status, the scale, the isolation. It's something else.
And for something maybe a bit quieter, some are really like, more remote.
Pristine, less visited. And then there's Magnetic Hill.
Ah, yes, Magnetic Hill, where cars supposedly roll uphill.
Yeah.
So do the sources confirm if my car would float off to Everest?
No Everest-bound cars confirmed in the sources.
Yeah.
Chuckle slightly. It's an optical illusion, apparently. The way the hills slope just tricks your eyes into thinking downhill is uphill.
Okay, fair enough. Still sounds fun.
It is. And it leads nicely into the whole adventure side of things and the spiritual aspect, too.
Right, the adventure stuff. Trekking seems huge.
Oh, yeah. Marka Valley is popular. And then there's the Chedar Trek.
On the frozen river.
On the frozen Zanskar River in winter. I mean, that's extreme. A real once-in-a-lifetime thing for those who can do it.
Wow. And biking.
Legendary. Those road trips, Leh to Manali or Leh to Srinagar, Bikers talk about those routes like pilgrimages, challenging roads, amazing views.
I can just picture that.
Yeah.
But it's not all about adrenaline, is it? People go for spiritual reasons, too.
Definitely. Spiritual tourism is a big draw. People go for meditation retreats or to spend time in the monasteries, experience that life.
Sounds like a place you can really disconnect, find some quiet.
You can, but if you are planning a trip, you absolutely have to understand the weather.
Okay. Cold desert climate, you said.
Yes, which means super dry and huge temperature swings between day and night, and the winters are brutal. Below -20 Celsius isn't uncommon.
-20.
Right, so the window to visit is quite specific. Basically, May to September, that's when the roads are typically open and the weather's, well, manageable for travel.
Good to know. That climate is definitely key. And what about other challenges for visitors? Things you need to be ready for?
Yeah, a few big ones. Altitude sickness is number one.
Because it's so high up.
Exactly. You absolutely must acclimatize for a day or two when you arrive. Just rest, take it easy. One source mentions someone feeling like they were running a marathon in quicksand on day one because they didn't rest.
Oof. Okay, that paints a picture. Acclimatize. Got it. What else?
Connectivity. Or lack thereof.
Phone signal, internet?
Yeah. In remote areas, don't count on it. Which is fine for a digital detox, maybe, but it has real impacts, Emergencies, local business, access to info for residents. It's a double-edged sword, that isolation.
Right, and environmental concerns, with more tourists coming.
That's a growing issue, yeah. The sources point to the strain on the fragile ecosystem. Water resources are a huge challenge in a high-altitude desert anyway, and tourism adds pressure. Waste management, too. It's something the region is grappling with.
That's crucial, for sure, thinking about its future. And speaking of the future, let's circle back to that administrative change you mentioned right at the start. So, October 31st, 2019, Ladakh officially became a union territory, separate from J&K, governed directly by the central government. 2 districts, Leh and Kargil. How does that direct governance actually play out on the ground? What do the sources say about the tangible impacts?
That's a really good point. It's not just paperwork. It fundamentally changes how decisions are made and where money flows. Before, Ladakh's needs were filtered through the Jammu and Kashmir state system. Now, as a union territory, there's a more direct pipeline to Delhi for funding for specific projects.
Like infrastructure, tourism.
Exactly. Infrastructure, connectivity, promoting tourism. These areas potentially see faster development. But, like we just discussed with the environment, that acceleration brings its own pressures. It makes that need for really careful, sustainable planning even more critical.
What an incredible place. This deep dive really reinforces that image of Leh Ladakh as, heaven meets earth, like the sources say, monasteries, mountains, this deep sense of mystery. Hopefully you listening feel like you got a much richer picture now. Not just the what, but the why behind it all. Thinking about everything we've touched on, what really stands out for you, beyond just the highlights.
For me, it's that unique blend, how it pulls in spiritual seekers, hardcore adventurers, people fascinated by culture, all to the same place. It's this combination of, harsh, stunning nature and this really deep-rooted cultural heritage that creates something unforgettable. But it does leave you with a big question, doesn't it? How does this Himalayan jewel, this incredible place, keep offering that experience, that connection to nature and tradition while managing the impacts? Especially now, with growing tourism, more outside interest, and this new administrative status. How do you balance preservation and progress sustainably?
That's a really powerful question to end on. It makes you think about resilience, adaptation, how unique places like this navigate the modern world. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Leh Ladakh. Until next time, keep exploring, keep discovering, and stay curious.